Welcome to the Veterinary Culture Lab, where science meets real-world application. I'm Andi Davison.
And I'm Josh Weissman. Together, we'll show you an evidence-based blueprint for renovating culture in your veterinary team, one episode at a time.
Turns out, the way we communicate at work can shape the entire climate of a clinic and impact our entire experience as well. In this episode, we dig in to what that really means for you and your teams.
How's it going, Andi?
Oh my gosh, it's going well. Thank you for asking.
Are you holding things together about as well as I am now that our director of operations, Tess, has decided to take a vacation?
I barely. I think barely is the word I'm looking for here.
Barely is a good word. Tess is an essential member of the Flourish team. I mean, everybody is an essential member of the Flourish team, but it's funny, like when I introduce the team, like in presentations, and I put the slide up with all the pictures, I always talk about Tess as the foundation on which the organization is built. She's like our launch pad. And that becomes like something I'm acutely aware of when she is taking a much deserved and needed vacation. I'm grateful that she is out there in the world enjoying herself and not worrying about us for several days. And I'm also realizing how necessary and significant she is in this organization.
Yes.
Which is, it's a nice reminder.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
When I did,
Couldn't
actually,
do it
I don't,
without her.
yeah, oh, for sure. This is not the purpose of today's episode, but this is reminding me, someday maybe we'll do an episode on this study. But I did in my master's, in one of the first modules, I wrote a paper on a study that was, it was a well-being intervention in which the participants were guided to think about something really important in their life and then write about how their life would have been different had that thing never happened. And this is making me think of that, like, wow, I am realizing how very different and less than my life would be had Tess Warner not been a part of it. But that's for another time. Andi, I want to share with you today, one thing that I've been thinking of a lot lately is climate. And not necessarily because of climate change or anything like that, but this summer here in Colorado has been like wonky, weird. We have days of like, it's like 103 and then the next day it's like 72. And we've had like crazy sustained rainstorms, like the kind of rain that you might get in Florida, but in
very familiar
Colorado.
with that. Yep.
Yeah. Super strange, super strange stuff. Today is actually kind of a cool overcast rainy day, which is really delightful. But sometimes I find myself thinking like Colorado is trying to be like some weird other state like Oklahoma. And then I started thinking, man, has anyone actually checked in on Oklahoma recently? I mean, I just want to make sure they're still okay.
I think you get your dad to go check in on Oklahoma.
You caught on to that one early. I could see your facial expression before I even got through that one changing.
I was ready because I admit my brain was like, Oklahoma. Okay, there's the random thread. I'm like, here it comes.
You got me.
It was
the actual,
okay.
It was just okay.
It was just okay.
Okay, dad joke. Yeah. Thank you. I will accept okay. The actual reason I've been thinking about climate is because I've been thinking about like workplace climates and the impact that climate can have. I mean, as you know, culture is like an essential aspect of any workplace environment, right? Culture is essentially the written and unwritten norms of what's rewarded and what's punished in a workplace. And that drives behavior, which then drives outcomes. Climate, though, is like kind of what it feels like, right? Like when you walk outside, what does it feel like? Is today a muggy, heavy, I'm staying inside kind of Florida day? Or is today, okay, maybe I can actually go ride Boston for a little bit kind of day, right? Like, you know what I'm talking about. So climate
Get
is
out
like
of my head.
Yes, exactly. Climate is what it feels like in a workplace, and what it feels like drives a lot of the outcomes that I think are really important to us. If it feels like the kind of workplace that's meeting my needs and fitting within my values, then I'm probably going to be energized and fulfilled in that workplace, right? And I'm going to do good work. Of course, if it feels the opposite of that, well, then it's a muggy day and I just want to kind of crawl into the corner by the air conditioning and not do anything, right? Andi, I'm really curious to hear from you and your, I hope you don't take this the wrong way, vast experience in veterinary medicine. Can you remember a time when like you worked with somebody in leadership where their style, their communication, their approach, like what they said, how they said it, how they showed up, kind of made the whole climate in the clinic or in the team just feel lighter or feel better, or even in the face of like a heavy caseload? Like what they did and how they showed up really kind of changed the vibe for a better way.
I have been lucky enough to work with a couple of these people, a few of these people.
Do tell.
And I know, right? And it was kind of fun to think about this because I got to remember the good energy that came from working with these people. I also got to remember how that contrasted with some of the other people that I've worked with, right? And in kind of thinking about all of these experiences, I picked up on a few common denominators, some things that these people kept on doing. And I mean, these leaders, Josh, they come from all corners of my veterinary world, right? I was lucky enough to work with some of these people in tech school. I was lucky enough to work with some of these people in small animal ER as well as in large animal. And so it kind of comes from across the gamut. And a lot of the things that I noticed that made such a difference were small. They
Mm,
weren't big monumental efforts. They were being recognized, right? These leaders, they knew my name. They used my name. They
mhm.
acknowledged me and they jumped in to be a part of the chaos, right? It wasn't
Yeah.
just a wander in, high five to Andi and wander out, right? They were happy to jump into the chaos. They acknowledged me. They thanked me for being there. Sometimes they even saw where I was struggling with something and they were like, hey, let me take an extra minute, even in the midst of chaos, to make sure that, you're comfortable suturing in that catheter because here's a great
Yeah.
opportunity and this is cool. And I'm going to focus on you because I know that you need this support. And here's a great opportunity. And it was like all the chaos sort of quieted down for a minute. And it was just me and that doctor. And she was helping me make sure that I sutured in that catheter, which is important.
Mhm.
And then once everything was sutured in and I had that moment, then it was like you pushed pause and the chaos ensued. But it was just those little moments across the board that really made a difference for me.
Small moments with big impact. Um, I'm going to imagine you said that you've had, at least a couple of leaders that did these small behaviors that had a big
Mhm.
impact on you. I'm going to imagine that you probably encountered some not so great leaders too, but I want to set those ones aside for a moment. My guess is that leadership is kind of on a bell curve, and there's like on the far left side of the curve is like those horrible, toxic, just terrible leaders, and on the far right side of the curve is like those amazing, great leaders that you hope just never go away. But in the middle are the people who are, they're doing the best that they can each and every day with
Mhm.
the tools that they have, and they're good. They're not great. They're not necessarily taking all these small moments, but they're okay leaders. I'm curious, Andi, the to to hear the comparison between when you worked with those couple of leaders who really made the effort to take those small moments versus the leaders who didn't, not because they were bad leaders, but they just weren't doing those things. What was different for you with those leaders who made the effort to take those small moments?
I think for me, the biggest difference was when they made the effort, it made me feel like I was worth the effort.
Ah, and then how did that change things for you? Like how did that change you, what you were feeling or how you showed up or
Oh, it changed everything completely, right?
hmm,
I felt like I was part of the solution. I was way more energized. I was ready to, stick around an extra 30 minutes to make sure it got done. I was
yeah.
ready to, help extra. I knew that I was making a difference. I didn't question, oh God, am I doing the right thing or am I in the right world or it was just, it really reiterated the value that I bring
Hmm,
to the team, to the patients, to the community. And I knew that I was worth it, which is
yeah.
huge.
Yeah. It made you feel like you mattered and what you were doing mattered, and it made you want to go like the phrase that we hear, leaders in vet med say all the time,
Above and
above and
beyond.
beyond. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Right. Like, yeah, like you actually you made the choice to do that because you felt like you were, I don't know, paying it back.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That is a perfect segue to the
Yeah.
paper that I have brought for us to discuss today. The title of this paper is Positive Leadership Within Breast Imaging, Impact on Burnout, Intent to Leave, and Engagement. The authors are somebody that you and I have become fond of recently, Dr. Amy Young, who does a lot of work in positive communication and so on and so forth. She's at the Ross Business School in Michigan. And then a couple of physician scientists, Drs. Garver and Golani. This paper, it looks like, was published in 2024. So this is a recent study. They were interested in looking at essentially the impact that leadership support could have on things like burnout and turnover in systems like healthcare, where it's a bit chaotic, it's very, very stressful, and could be very overwhelming. The core idea here was to draw on organizational resilience research. They wanted to test whether leadership communication can actually shape workplace climate, which in turn might then influence things like burnout, engagement, intention to leave, or, stay in a job, that kind of stuff. So the way that they tested this was, it was a two-part project in an academic medical center. So this was at the University of Michigan's breast imaging unit, and they included the entire medical care team. So there were physicians, there were nurses, there were clerical staff, assistants, everybody was involved. And they conducted sort of like a pre and post assessment. So they surveyed all the faculty and staff. They took the baseline survey in February of 2021. Andi, do you remember what was happening in the world in
Right.
February of 2021? Yeah, I mean, we all remember, like, this was during COVID, when the healthcare system was hammered well above and beyond what they normally receive as hammering. So that's interesting to me. So that was the pretest. Then they did a follow-up assessment where they conducted the same exact surveys in February of 2023. So this kind of, coming out of COVID 2 years later, right? In between those things, they delivered a 2-year-long positive leadership development program. Okay, so what do I mean by positive leadership development program? Well, it was a multi-phase program titled Positively Energizing Leadership. And this was, obviously based on the work of Kim Cameron and others at the University of Michigan. They had a book, there were author sessions, they had modules teaching a whole variety of things. They did daily mentoring, coaching, modeling of practices, so on and so forth. The measures that they assessed pre and post were, the team's assessment of leadership communication within the practice. So was communication transparent? Was it consistent? Was it curious? Were they inviting questions? They measured the workplace climate. Specifically, they were trying to assess, is this a positive workplace climate? Is there dignity here, belongingness, shared purpose, voice, well-being, all those kinds of things. They measured team engagement, and then they measured burnout and the intention to leave, which is essentially the likelihood of them looking for a job elsewhere in the next 12 months. Here's what's so cool. So the findings this study determined that leadership communication and these positive leadership practices seemed to be very strongly linked to workplace climate. I mean, like, really strongly. Like Pearson's R that makes us jump up and down and scream as researchers. And that better climate was also very highly linked to things like lower burnout and intention to leave. So in other words, if there was a positive change in leadership practice, there was a positive change in the climate. And when there was a positive change in the workplace climate, burnout went down and the intention to leave. So I'm thinking of leaving and finding another job also went down. Huge findings. Really, really powerful stuff. So significant gains in leadership communication and workplace climate. We saw the drops in burnout, all that kind of stuff. So why does this matter to us? This was conducted in healthcare settings, so I think that's pretty cool, but it wasn't a veterinary setting. It was human healthcare. I still think that really applies to us. Many vet hospitals face very similar strains to human healthcare, right? We have staffing shortages and gaps. We've got sometimes people who, have different levels of training and expertise. There is a high emotional strain to the work that we do in veterinary medicine, just like in human medicine. There's often a lot of unpredictability, variability in our work, just like in human medicine. So I think we can posit from this that if we can apply positive communication and positive leadership in veterinary spaces, we'll probably see the same shifts. We'll probably see an improvement in workplace climate, which will then reduce burnout and improve retention. So yeah, that was the study. A couple like key takeaways that I wanted to focus on and get your input on. The first one is this idea that communication is leverage. Communication is influence. So what this study and what these researchers seem to suggest is that if we have transparent, frequent, bi-directional communication between leaders and led, we're going to have a more positive workplace climate, and people will feel more informed, they'll feel more heard, they'll feel better and more energized in the work. Annie, I'm curious from your perspective in all the different places, you shared with me where it's gone really well. Can you share examples of where that leadership communication has just gone anything but well, where it's gone wrong in a veterinary setting?
I was just talking about this exact thing with a colleague of mine, like earlier today, another veterinary colleague. And it absolutely surrounded communication and transparency. And a lot of times, you're right, it can be used as leverage. And in those not so great experiences, it's used as negative leverage. And I think power dynamics come into play. That's a big one, right? Where you have leaders that, they know things, or they're a part of decisions, or they're implementing protocols, and they see that as power. And so they see the communication surrounding that as power, and they want to hang on to that, right? They don't want to share that with the team, because then they won't be seen as powerful, or they won't be seen as the decision maker. They won't be seen as the one that knows, and they want to be the one that knows. And that is extremely frustrating. And it's a huge lack of transparency, because then it forces those leaders, whether they like it or not, whether they're doing it on purpose or not, to be gatekeepers. And that never works very well. And then the teams feel like they're left in the dark, or just being told what they need to hear, or what they think they're supposed to hear. And that really limits that bidirectional communication. And my personal experience with this was in a really big hospital. It was actually in an academic hospital. And where communication was it was gatekeepy to the max. And it was also weaponized against you, where you needed to make sure that you were communicating with the right people and saying the right thing. And it was that proverbial, CC everybody on the email, make sure that you ask permission for every single thing before you do it, and make sure that everybody knows. And it was a CYA thing, but it was also a power dynamic that kept leaders in that part of the pyramid. And there was not a lot of transparency. And you would see it as you went down in teams that they didn't know what they were doing, why they were doing it. They were just being told to do it. And we all know how much fun it is to be told what to do.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I worked with a practice owner once, and I remember the first time that I met him, he was like so proud to show me this binder that he had brought, like literally like a binder like this, right? Except you see how thin mine is. His was like, it was bursting with stuff. And he was so excited to show me that this is how he is transparent at work. Every time there's a new policy or a new procedure or a new decision he makes, he writes a memo, like a military style memorandum of this is the policy and this is what you're supposed to do. And then every team member is supposed to look in the binder every day and check mark the ones by their name, their initials, that they've read the new policy. And he thought, look at my transparency. That's not transparency. That's dictatorship. So yeah, I hear what you're saying. Another thing that really stood out from this paper is just the power that climate had on all of these outcomes. I mean, it basically, this study shows us that climate is really kind of at the center of everything. that if we have an engagement issue, if we have a burnout issue, if we have a turnover issue, like all those kinds of things are really about what it feels like in the workplace each and every day. And what's this sort of like through line, the central narrative? Ultimately, how the workplace makes people feel seems to matter more than just about anything else. Like, you can't pay people enough to feel good in a workplace with a shitty climate. Like,
Yep.
that's just the reality. And if you want people to be engaged, or like what you were describing with those two like really high quality leaders that you interacted, engaged to the point of like focused, motivated, self-driven, willing to go above and beyond, like we talked about. Like, it's, you have to create the climate that makes that possible. So I thought that was really interesting too. The other thing that stood out to this is that, a lot of times in this kind of research, they're just sort of measuring relationships between things, but this one actually had an intervention in between. They actually delivered this like leadership development program and then measured the climate pre and post and measured the changes in those outcomes like burnout and engagement and turnover. And they found, hey, guess what? The intervention works.
Mm-hmm.
And the really cool thing was that it worked during a time of crisis. Like, how many times, Andi, how many times have you encountered a veterinary practice that's been like, things are a mess here and we need to change things? Okay, here's what we can do to change things. Oh, we don't have time for that.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Unfortunately, I've heard that.
This organization was going through, they were in human healthcare in COVID. You want to talk about a time when you don't have time for things? But these 88 people, they committed to being a part of this program. It was delivered in small bites over time. And that small intervention repeated over time with intentionality made a huge difference, which is why I'm so excited about the kinds of programs that we have at Flourish with our, our certificate in positive veterinary leadership and all our other master classes, the certificate in cultivating positive team communication, like all those are development programs that can match this kind of intervention. I think that's really powerful. One more finding that I thought was really cool. I'm going to talk about one that I think it hits in your heart, in your sphere. The power of resilience through relationships. Mm. The authors of this study framed what they called relational reserves. So these high quality connections that cultivate over time that became like survival assets. They were literal buffers against the chaos and stress that these people were facing. And that positive climate seems to facilitate building those reservoirs. So you could argue that if we've got positive leadership behaviors, we're going to have a positive climate that will then make it more possible for people to develop these relational reserves. So, Andi, I'm curious, as somebody who's a huge fan of resiliency and high quality connections and the power of relationships, how can we bank relational reserves in veterinary teams before the next COVID happens?
Yeah. Yeah. Josh, you said high quality connections. My ears went up. I was like,
yeah. Yeah.
There's
yeah.
the thing. It's such a critical and powerful effort. And whenever I think about creating that sort of social capital, right? That relational bank, the word intentional comes to mind for me. That intentional effort to find opportunities to connect with other people and looking for those opportunities and taking advantage of them. I think, though, that's key. And that, of course, starts with a mindset of intention to go out and do that. And think, maybe today I'm going to make an intentional effort to connect with Kelly because, Kelly's new and I don't really know much about them yet. And I really would just like to connect. So I'm going to find 1 minute today where I can go out and do that and set that intention for yourself and do that with your team consistently on purpose so that you have a bank of connection with these people so that when the dumpster explodes and it's not just a fire, it's like a raging inferno, you've got that to fall back on. And the image, right, of a piggy bank always comes to mind. And it's a lovely image. Yeah. You make these intentional short connections with people. Hey, how was your weekend? Hey, Tell me more about something meaningful you did while you were visiting your family last week. That
Yeah.
deposits nickels and dimes into your piggy bank. And over time, your bank will fill up so that when said dumpster explodes and you have to pull out $50 or $100, it's not completely empty.
Yeah.
And so I really think it's that intentional effort to do it on purpose.
To do it on purpose. That's an awesome segue into what I think are some cultural renovation lessons that come from this. Like if we want to renovate our culture and start kind of creating this positive climate that's going to reduce burnout, improve engagement, improve longevity and retention, those kinds of things. How do we do that? How do we start renovating? Well, I think micro practices can make a big difference. And to play off of what you were saying, as leaders, creating moments for connection, like making it on purpose. So like two small examples that I'm thinking of off the top of my head that I've encountered in the past. I know of a practice, they do a thing. It's a small hospital. Every morning they do their rounds. It's usually like 8 or 10 of them. So it's a very small practice. But there's 8 or 10 of them on shift. They do a quick like 10-minute rounds before they open up the hospital. It's the usual stuff, right? Like, hey, Andi, you're going to be in surgery today. Don't forget Mrs. Smith. She needs a little extra time at discharge, right? Like that kind of stuff. At the end of it, then what they do is a percentage check. So it's an opportunity to create a little bit of empathy, which and understanding, which is part of human connection, right? So they just go around the room and they just ask everybody, "What's your percentage today?" No explanation. We don't spend a ton of time on it. The whole activity takes 30 seconds, but just what's your percentage today? But we're sharing it in front of everybody. So you might be at 80% today. I might be at 40% today, right? And we go around the room. Now we all know like what's the best that we can expect of each other today, and we can kind of help and support each other. And it's just been fascinating to hear about like some of the results that came from this and the understandings and connections. The gossipy stuff kind of reduced and people started like really supporting each other and really cool stuff. So that's one example. Another micro practice that I think can help create these moments of high quality connection opportunities. I know of a practice that they created a system where once a month, 2 team members, usually from different like areas of the practice or different departments within the hospital, were selected. They were given a gift card and sent off to go to lunch together on the clock.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, it's such a cool idea, right? Like what a great way to like create opportunities for people to get to know each other in special ways. So like thinking about this as a leader is like, what are the things that I'm doing right now that are actually a barrier to people connecting? Like, for example, so many of us are like, when you're working, you don't have this. When you're working, you put the phone down. The phone needs to be in your office. So no phone policy. Like, and I get where a lot of that's coming from, but also thinking about how is that preventing the team from connecting? And what are things that we could do that will encourage the team to connect while they're doing their job? Right. So the rounds thing, that's part of doing their job. We got to send people on lunch breaks anyway. That's part of doing their job. Right. Like, so think about those. Like, what are micro moments that we can do? What do you think? Do you have any other suggestions or thoughts for micro moments?
I love the lunch idea. I think that's so cool. That's so cool. One thing I would add to that, right, because I've gotten questions about this sometimes. I'll have really great conversations with leaders and they'll say, "Oh, I've tried this, right? I've done these things. I've made some of these efforts and I just don't see like the payback coming." And where we've gotten with some of that is include your team in understanding more about where those opportunities are. So rather than feel pressured, right, to come up with these ideas, rather than feel like, oh my gosh, I have to be the one to come up with the idea of picking one, surgery tech and one optho tech and sending them off to lunch together, ask your team. Ask your team for their input.
Wait, Andi, are you saying that if we want the team to have opportunities to build high quality connections, we should go to the team and say, "Hey, it's really important to me that you guys have an opportunity to get to know each other as people. What would be some small ways we could do that?" Like, we should just ask them?
I mean, it's radical. It's radical. I know.
Mind
Hashtag
blown.
sarcasm.
Yeah. Hashtag sarcasm. Oh,
But
I love
yes.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. Just ask
I think
them.
I think that's fascinating.
What do you think? What would be fun? they have ideas, I promise you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Another thing that came out of this, and when we're thinking of cultural renovation, is this idea of transparency. So oftentimes you and I hear this all the time with veterinary teams. The team says they never tell us what's going on. They never explain things. We need better communication. The leaders are like, I feel like all we do is have meetings where I communicate things and then they go and they don't do it right. I don't understand, right? And round we go. So transparency can be really important. One thing that this was an idea that was shared with me several years ago, actually. I thought it was kind of cool. That can help with some of this transparency stuff. This thing called a red, yellow, green board. So the red, yellow, green board is like, hey, here are like the stuff that we're working on. So we had a staff meeting and everybody's like, yo, we got to figure out a better way to like organize the OR for efficiency purposes, right? So that goes up on the green, yellow, red board. So reorganizing the OR. It's listed as green because we're working on. I'm sorry, it's listed as yellow because we're working on it. And then next to that is here is the stuff that we're working on with maybe a little date and who's in charge of it, right? And then when it's done, when we've completed it and we're good to go, then we shift it to green. Or something else gets added, something with more urgency. And now we've got to take the OR action and we've got to pause it for a while. We can't really work on reorganizing. So we shift it from yellow to red. So everybody knows it's still on the board, it's still on the list, but we're not actually actively doing anything with it right now because we've got this other more urgent thing. That board could be, I don't know, could live in a Google document, or maybe it's literally a digital board in the treatment room or something like that. But just a way for everybody on the team to see these are the things that we're working on. Here's who's working on them. Here's the progress, the last date, and the status just in a quick visual image. It's just a way to kind of keep things open and transparent in the practice.
Yep. That quick visual is probably so helpful and time saving.
Yeah, mm-hmm. Exactly. There's a million other things that I think we can pull from this really, really cool study, but
it's a cool article, like really cool article. I'm going to throw something out there though. And I might, friends, I realize what I'm saying, but I'm going to say it as a Spartan, right? As a Michigan State graduate, it is part of my identity to be against U of M, right? Like it is a rivalry.
Yeah.
And the work that they're doing in this realm of the world is incredible. It's incredible. I love their approach. I love their focus on healthcare because they have, opportunity to run these studies at the medical schools up there. And it is so cool to see all of that coming out of U of M. So probably the one and only time in my life I will say it. Good on you, Wolverines.
Good on you, Wolverines. I think we can agree that, U of M does some exceptional work out of the Ross Business School and the Center for Positive Organizational Scholarship. If they were to start, say, a vet school and a tech school, it would probably be the second best of each in the state of Michigan.
Oh, absolutely. There would be fisticuffs over that. And I would be leading the charge.
Fair.
Go green.
Fair. Go green. Andi, that brings us to my favorite segment of our podcast. What do you got for Florida Man this week?
Florida Man this week is a hell of a headline. And I'm just going to drop it because it is amazing. Florida Man brings live gator into convenience store. Chases customers. Can you imagine?
So wait a sec. If I just based on that headline, I'm in there are multiple images popping into my head. Florida Man brings live gator into grocery store, chases customers.
No, convenience store. Convenience store. Because you know what he's buying, right? Like we don't have to talk about that. You know what he's buying.
Yeah. Okay, so Florida Man goes into 7-Eleven with a live gator, chases customers. So what I'm picturing is like the live gator sitting by the entrance and the Florida Man is chasing the customers around.
See, that's funny because my brain had Florida Man in all of his glory holding the alligator, running after people like chasing with it.
Even better. I love that. It's like, and the gator's chomping.
Yes. Yes, loving every minute. I'm just like, oh, yeah, Florida man.
I am
Creative.
deeply grateful that you live in the state of Florida.
Never a dull moment in Florida.
Never a dull moment. That's a
Yep.
good one. Thank you, Andi. Well, we will be sure to share the link to Florida Man's Gator adventure, as well as the article, the study that we mentioned here, positive leadership within breast imaging, impact on burnout, intent to leave, and engagement, and maybe even a link to some of our master classes, those development programs that we mentioned as well, to help you with your culture renovation needs. Thanks for joining us for another episode, folks. We'll look forward to meeting up with you the next time. Thanks, Andi.
See y'all soon. Thanks for hanging out with us in the Veterinary Culture Lab, powered by the science of workplace well-being and brought to you by Flourish Veterinary Consulting. If today's episode sparked an idea, made you smile, or got you thinking, hey, I should totally try that, let us know. What do you think? Be sure to subscribe, share, and remember, a thriving veterinary culture is possible, and you don't have to build it alone.